They've taken the ease and convenience of fishing with a jig head, combined it with the efficiency and effectiveness of a circle hook, and created the bird of prey circle jig. Welcome back to Father-Son Fishing. I'm Fish Guy Josh. He's my son Ryder, and this is the premiere episode of our gear review series, Family Fishing Level Ups, where we walk you through some of the equipment, gear, and tackle that we think will greatly improve your fishing experience, especially when fishing with family and little kids. Today's subject matter is the bird of prey circle jig. Ryder, you ready?
Let's get into this.
Now, when I'm out fishing with Ryder, or even when I'm teaching angling to people during my day job, I absolutely love using jig heads. They're super easy to use, they're great for beginners and kids, and they're super versatile. You can fish them with soft plastic lures, you can fish them with cut bait, live bait, you can cast them and let them sit out on the bottom, you can cast and retrieve, you can fish them under a cork, or you can just jig them up and down off of a dock or a boat. Plus, you only need to tie on one piece of tackle to your line instead of a more complicated rig. Now, obviously, you can't always go fishing with a jig head. There are certain situations they just don't work. And other fishing trips require more complicated rigs and just different tackle. And one of the tackle items we use the most are the circle hooks. That's the hooks where the point goes inward toward the shank. These are great hooks to use when Ryder and I go catfishing, when we're chasing gar. I often set these up under Carolina rigs or on a Santee rig when we're fishing ponds and rivers. And even recently we were using circle hooks under our homemade jug lines when we went jug fishing in our old Cajun pirogue. They're super easy to use for kids because you don't have to actually set the hook. All you have to do is start reeling in and the fish kind of hooks itself. And it also almost always ensures that it's a nice easy hook up in the side of the mouth, which is always a bonus when trying to deal with a kid and removing hooks from fish. Our subject today has taken the best of both worlds, combined them together to make one fantastic piece of tackle. They've taken the ease and convenience of fishing with a jig head, combined it with the efficiency and effectiveness of a circle hook, and created the bird of prey circle jig. Although they started making custom jigs in 2009, bird of prey fishing has officially been around since 2014. They're based out of the Florida Panhandle, and they make a ton of high quality items, including really sweet custom cutting boards, deep water offshore jigs, and specialty sheep's head jigs. And this was actually where Ryder and I first found out about bird of prey, when we were researching how to up our sheep's head fishing game. And we absolutely love using both their knocker and their sheep's head swing jigs. So one day while I was checking out their social media page, I saw that they had this product listed called circle jigs. And the focus of them is to be used offshore fishing, deep water, for snapper and stuff like that. But I saw that some of the sizes were rather lightweight for that sort of application. I thought, you know, I really think these hooks can be used for catfishing and some of the inshore marsh fishing that Ryder and I do with Uncle Ruby. So I reached out to the company, and they actually, to my surprise, said not a lot of people really use them for catfish. They thought it was something maybe they ought to look into targeting more. So I took it upon myself to buy a bunch of them and go, you know what, we're going to really put this to the test. And you may have even seen some of these hooks in a lot of Ryder and I's recent fishing adventures. Now, if you remember in one of our recent pond fishing videos, Ryder and I absolutely tore up the channel catfishing. And if you noticed, every single fish we caught was on one of these circle jigs. It was great because I only had to tie on this one piece of gear. It's the weight and the hook all combined together. No extra complicated rigs. Really easy to cast out for both myself and Ryder. And it was a super easy hookup. Always in the side of the mouth. We had a blast. It was really simple, really fun, and overall it made our trip fantastic. While that was a great place to test the circle jigs in place of regular circle hooks that we often use, We also wanted to try and replace regular jig heads with these circle jigs and see how that worked out. And in order to do that, we needed to go where we often use jig heads while we're fishing, and that was on the boat with Uncle Ruby doing some saltwater fishing in the marsh. So on a recent trip down the bayou, I subbed out all my regular jig heads for the circle jigs. Now this was a little tougher for me as it was a bit harder for me to get a feel for the fish, and I found myself trying to set the hook like I normally do with regular jig heads, and I was missing a lot of fish. And there was even a moment of frustration where I took off all the circle jigs from my lines and put the regular jig heads back on. However, I was still finding a lot of tough hookups. It was just one of those days where I was kind of the odd man out as far as catching fish. And I swapped the circle jigs back on, and eventually I did kind of get into a groove and did catch some fish on them. I feel like it was sort of an incomplete test. I do need to take them out and use them a bit more to really get a feel for them and take them out when the fish aren't being quite as finicky. But I think it is a good option for us in saltwater. It could be really easy for Ryder in the future when he can handle a saltwater rod by himself more. So overall, maybe inconclusive for saltwater fishing inshore. However, I think there's some really good potential there. Now, that wasn't the only application we tested. During a few other random fishing sessions, we actually brought the circle jigs along just to see if they would fit in somewhere, and we were pretty pleasantly surprised by the results. On a really odd fishing session where Ryder and I came up on this flooded boat ramp and parking lot, we actually busted out the circle hooks to fish for a while, thinking maybe we'd catch a catfish or something like that. And actually, we caught an eel on that, and it was a really solid hookup too. It wasn't like we got lucky and somehow barely hooked him. He was on there pretty good. It was a nice easy landing and a pretty easy hook removal, other than the fact that he wrapped up around my fishing rod. But it was really interesting catch and a pleasant surprise on the circle jigs. And during another trip to the bayou side to fish at Uncle David's house, we actually threw out a line with a circle jig on it while we were cane poling for sunfish and fishing for big catfish. And I was assuming maybe we'd get a nice little medium-sized catfish on this or something like that. And actually, to my surprise, we actually hooked up a nice spotted gar. And I would have never thought that spotted gar, or any gar in general, was one of the fish we'd catch on these because their bites are so finicky. I figured they would have felt the weight of this circle jig and dropped it. However, fishing on the bottom with a piece of cut eel that we caught on a circle jig from the other video, we were able to catch a spotted gar on them, and it was a really nice, easy hookup as well. All in all, I'd say the Bird of Prey circle jig is a great investment if you're really into fishing with circle hooks or fishing with jig heads. They're super easy to use. They really simplify the process of fishing, again, especially when fishing with family and little kids. They're really well made. They're pretty cheap. And the Bird of Prey company is absolutely wonderful to work with. They're super nice, super informative, and they really get back to you online when you have questions or concerns. I think I'm actually going to even get some of their much larger size circle jigs and some of their swing circle jigs, which are kind of like the sheep's head jigs, but much bigger weight, and they have a circle hook on there that kind of hinges on a swing. And I'm going to try those and apply them in the big Mississippi River fishing that Ryder and I have been trying to do for monster catfish. I think this might be a good answer for me for needing that really big, heavy weight to fish that heavy current. So make your family fishing life easier and pick up some Bird of Prey circle jigs to add to your tackle box. Be kind, please rewind, and we hope that this video gives you the confidence to go out fishing with your own family. And if Ryder were here right now instead of off playing somewhere in the yard, he'd tell you to bring a kid fishing.
Sound of fun fishing. Subscribe, please.